Hello, we are members of the UWE graduating class of 2021. In this film, we're going to talk you through our individual approaches to our design methodologies. We're each going to take a turn to talk about our favourite parts of the design process, from research to sampling to tech bags. Hope you enjoy.
For me, research is one of the most rewarding parts of the design process because I really get to bring in all of my outside interests into my fashion work, which I find really rewarding, like piecing together. It's almost like a puzzle, like piecing together ideas. And the concepts of my work are generally always tied to like social and political things I'm interested in that are happening around us, because I think art and fashion are a really important platform and tool for exploring these ideas and commenting on kind of what's going on, and also a form of making people who might not be aware of certain issues aware of them, which I think is really important to use. And my secondary research generally is very like founded in books and the research that I get from that. I love flicking through books and I find it a really important way of drawing together ideas visually that might be quite disparate in what they actually are, but the way they've been documented by people, there's links between them, and I find that a really helpful way of putting together kind of quite separate ideas. For my primary research, I love photography, so this makes up the foundation for a lot of that work that I do, but I'm also really interested in sculpture and kind of other forms of art, so I bring that in where I can. And for one of my most recent projects titled We Hunt in the Folds, it actually lended itself really well to using sculpture because I was looking at imprints and kind of the traces we leave as people. So I worked with clay and I maked into some clay and then printed with that kind of just to see what would happen. And just that process then generated new ideas, which is one of the things that I love about it most. Even if things don't work out necessarily, they always lead you somewhere new. And the motivation really for all of my research is just genuine curiosity, just to try ideas and see what happens, because it's, even if things don't work, they generally always take you somewhere that, I don't know, leads you to something useful. And I love that. Even when things don't work, and when they do, that's like extra rewarding. So that's how I kind of approach my research.
My material choices and the materials that I use are probably the most important part of my creative process. I've spent the last year creating a library of raw materials curated from my local landscape. I felt it was important to document these natural materials and shed light on all the possibilities of what you can do with these existing biodegradable natural products. I spent time looking at alternatives to materials that we use frequently in fashion, like leather, pleather, and all those plastic coatings. And I was trying to find biomaterial alternatives to these things. So I live near the beach, and so seaweed was really readily available to me. And I explored that a lot, and how I could use it to make bio leathers and coatings. It was a very tactile and hands-on project. I spent lots of time gathering these materials, sorting them, pulverising them, mixing them up with lots of different agents, and seeing how all the different substrates yielded different results. I think the thing that I explored most deeply this year was wool. It's like such a fantastic resource, and I worked quite closely with the urban flocks of Brighton that live up on the hillside around where I live. I was able to experiment using wool as a base for many of the coatings that I played with, and the experiments that I did. It's so versatile, and it's got all these amazing properties, and I really wanted to bring those natural fibres back into the conversation and explore its properties alongside the coatings that I was creating from seaweed. I also played around with mud and chalk. All of the materials that I chose came from a kind of mile radius of where I live, so I created clothing and installation pieces that are really founded in the landscape, and they tell the story of the land through my material choices. I hope that through my materials library that I created, I can provide a tangible resource for artists and designers and crafters and anyone that's looking to create work with a similar ethos to mine, which is following a 0 miles biodegradable, carbon positive approach to creating art or fashion.
Hi, my name's Edie Bisseker, and I'm specialising in knitwear with an interest in creative drafting. My final collection focused on online interactions and involved a lot of first-hand research on sites like Omegle and Chatroulette. I painted and chatted to the people I met there, and then used this as the basis for my knit and colour palette. A really key thing for me was the humour of the research, so I wanted to convey that throughout the collection. For this project, I focused a lot on intarsia and really graphic techniques, as I wanted the research to show clearly in the designs. As a knit student, sampling is obviously a really important part of my process. I like to translate my ideas and visuals quite literally and then allow them to evolve throughout the knitting process. And afterwards, these samples are essential to my silhouette and scale development, working on mini mannequins to figure out how best to apply them to the body. Sampling is my favourite part of the process as it's really unrestrained by form and can be used as the starting point for sketching and refining your ideas.
Every designer has their own unique process when it comes to the development of initial design ideas. For me, it's the use of my primary imagery. I like to explore how my images could inform a silhouette that can work on the body. For my Footsteps of Existence collection, I accumulated a range of photographs of soles of shoes and shoe prints overlapping in the snow, which created intricate shapes and patterns. I collaged these images in relation to the body to develop silhouettes which then informed further design development. Colour plays a huge part in the making of the final lineup look cohesive. In the video you can see me testing out multiple colourways for each outfit. This is a crucial step in my designing process as it brings everything together and ensures the colour palette is distributed in the most effective way possible. Lastly, we have the layout of the final lineup. I like to experiment with different layouts. This allows me to ensure the colours throughout the lineup are spread effectively, as well as ensuring balance throughout lengths and silhouettes of different designs. This process ensures there is harmony in the final lineup since all the designs work well next to each other.
Within my design process, I like to concentrate on creative pattern cutting. The key element of my design ethos is to create garments that can easily be transformed and therefore will be accessible for a variety of different body shapes and genders, as well as being practical for the everyday life. Therefore, I like to include a lot of volume in my designs and add a functional detail to make the volume and silhouette adjustable. I like to distance myself from conventional ways of designing and aim for forms and details that will work around the body shape rather than just sitting on top of them. In order to achieve this look, I usually take my pattern pieces and try to place them together in new ways to reduce the typical seams we know of and create new ones in unusual places. Since I aim for putting a high amount of volume into my pattern pieces, I use the slash and spread method because this is the most efficient way to get the desired shape. With creative pattern cutting, it can often become quite difficult to keep track of the different pieces and locate the right seams together. What I like to do when I have pattern pieces with a very unusual shape and I'd like to add volume in many different places is I work in sections and add the volume step by step. Drawstrings are one of the key features of my designs. I chose them so that I'll be able to control the silhouette of each of my garments. So I start off by roughly marking where I'd like to add the cutouts where the drawstrings should go in, followed by adding any additional dividing seams as a replacement for the old side seams. The position of these seams also depends on the placement of the cutouts, as they allow extra volume to be added to round shapes. I then mark the lines where I'll be cutting into the pattern pieces. After marking, I trace off each individual piece and start cutting and spreading.
Throughout my final year at university, there's been a lot of restrictions as to where I could work, whether the university was open, the materials that I had to hand, the equipment. So this really naturally led on to me thinking what I had around me and what I could work with from home. So I really feel like I pushed myself to become a lot better at my digital skills as I was able to do this from my laptop at home. with this, I really pushed myself with my digital illustrations, and I feel from the start of the year to now there's been a real progression in the strength and the quality of my illustrations digitally. So my working drawings, my CADs, my tech packs have all really come on. I used these successfully throughout my year, and I really wanted to pursue this as a skill, and I feel like I've really done well to produce precise, detailed, accurate illustrations. So as a designer, I'm able to successfully portray what I want through my work, and I feel like I've created really strong, visually pleasing designs that I'm happy with, and I feel like you can look at my work and say, yeah, that's Kirstie's work. So I'm really happy with how my illustrating has come along a long way, and I really feel like that is my creative strength coming through, and you're able to see that within my work.
I hope you enjoyed the overview of our design process as 2021 graduates, and thank you for listening. We can be contacted on the email addresses on the following slide.